be honest. I'm surprised Justin Wilcox is still at California. He enters year 9 with the Golden Bears with a 42-50 record with 5 straight losing seasons. But I guess the only silver lining is that he has been to 2 straight bowl games, even though he did lose both of them. Last year was an absolute killer for California. It looked like it could be a special year. Started 3-0, had that big upset win on the road against Auburn, and then they lost 4 straight games to Florida State, Miami, Pittsburgh, and NC State, all by a combined 9 points. 4 losses by 9 total points. If you factor in an 8-point loss at home later in the year to Syracuse, that means 5 of California's 7 losses were decided by 1 possession and came by a total of 17 points. It was a 6-7 season that easily could have been a 9, 10, 11 win season, and we're talking about California in a completely different light right now. Just a really, really frustrating season. Now you enter this season and California loses practically everybody. And that's why this is a very big year for Justin Wilcox and very well could be his last year with the program. You take a look at the offense. They lose their top 3 passers, namely Fernando Mendoza, who is now transferred to Indiana. They lose their top 10 rushers, including Javian Thomas and Jaden Ott, who's now off to Oklahoma. They lose 11 of their top 12 pass catchers from last year, and they lose 3 on the offensive line, an offensive line that gave up 50 sacks in 2024. Just horrendous. Losing everybody. They only averaged 25 points per game last year, only averaged 122 rushing yards per game. They've got major questions on that side of the ball now. They're going to turn to Ohio State transfer quarterback Devin Brown. Never really got to see the field much with the Buckeyes. Obviously, highly touted, does have a lot of potential. Can he pan out with California now in the ACC? That's going to be the million-dollar question. They add L.J. Johnson in at running back from SMU. They've got some solid wide receivers. Jacob DeJesus coming in from UNLV, had over 1,100 reception yards in 2 years with the Rebels. Tron Grizzle comes back, had 401 yards last year with California. And they do bring in a lot of transfers on the offensive line that now, with the transfers, has 110 combined starts. So if Devin Brown ends up living up to the hype, the offensive line is significantly better, maybe California's offense won't be as bad as we think it's going to be. But again, it all comes down to how quickly these transfers gel. And as we've seen across the world of college football in the recent years, it really is hit or miss. They might thrive or they might completely fail, just like we saw like Florida State last year. The defense, they lose 7 of their top 9 tacklers after improving by 10.5 points per game. So they improve from 2023 to 2024 by over 10 points per game. It was massive. Only gave up 22.3 points per game last year. And once again, like the offense, California going to be relying on a lot of transfers on this side of the ball. TJ Bush comes in on the defensive line from Liberty. They do return Nate Burrell and Ryan McCulloch, who had 3 sacks last year. The linebacking core to me actually looks pretty solid for the Golden Bears. Their second leading tackler, Cade Uluabe, is back. They add in Wam Jock from Colorado State, had 100 tackles last year with the Rams. That's a huge addition on the linebacking core. The secondary, though, which was pretty dang good last year, one that had 15 interceptions, loses practically everybody. So the defensive line might be okay, the linebacking core might be okay, but the secondary has some major questions, losing tons of talent there. So that might be the weakness for California if, again, they can't have the younger guys and these transfers pan out. Take a look at the schedule for Cal. It's tough. So you factor in all of the losses on both sides of the ball, a coach that's on the hot seat, a team that is 7-36 against teams with a winning record under Justin Wilcox. Keep in mind that 8 full seasons, they only had 7 wins against teams with a winning record. They went 0-5 against teams with a winning record last year. Things are not looking good for the Golden Bears. They opened the season on the road at Oregon State. That's going to be a loss. Yes, they won by 37 points last year, 44-7, but now this is a completely different Oregon State team. They were kind of in that state of limbo that California's in right now. They lost a lot of guys from last year. They were kind of, in that first year of being independent, Oregon State and Washington State were kind of in this weird state of limbo. Now it's the opposite. California's in that state. Oregon State in a much better spot. They've got a solid veteran transfer, Malik Murphy coming in. Anthony Hangerson was a 1,000-yard rusher. Trent Walker was nearly a 1,000-yard receiver. 6 starters are back on defense. Corvallis not an easy place to play. You've got a more veteran Beavers team than California here. Got to go with Oregon State. They start 1-0. Cal 0-1. Bounce back with a win over Texas Southern, and I think they lose to Minnesota. This Minnesota team is underrated. Maybe it's a winnable game. Some could say this is a winnable game for Cal. But, again, you look at the numbers here. You look at the talent coming back. the question I have is this California offense, which historically, even when they had returning talent, historically was never that strong under Justin Wilcox. Can this California offense, with so many new pieces and only the third week of the season, exploit this really good Minnesota defense that has 6 starters back after giving up just 286 yards per game? Defense travels well, and Minnesota has a very underrated core of running backs and wide receivers. So I think the Golden Gophers, honestly, probably on the edge in every aspect of this game with the exception of home field advantage. And I think the Golden Gophers can overcome that, because right now I'm not sold on Cal's offense. They lose the game to Minnesota. I do think they beat San Diego State, so they're 2-2, beat the Aztecs by 21 points last year. So a third of the way through the season, they're 2-2, and now you're getting into the bulk of ACC conference play. And when you look at this schedule, you could argue it is fairly favorable, right? I mean, they don't play Clemson. They don't play Miami. They don't play some of the best teams in this conference. Yes, they got to play SMU in the finale. They made the playoff last year. Louisville won't be tough. Virginia Tech on the road won't be easy. But it could be worse, I guess we could say. They don't play Florida State, who should improve this year. But I look at this schedule for Cal, and I struggle to find a lot of wins in conference play for them. And I'll cut to the chase a little bit. I think California, after a 2-2 start, loses their next 6 games. So I've got them at 2-8. Maybe Justin Wilcox fired mid-season at this point, because again, I'm not sure where the wins are going to come from. And again, maybe I'm underselling them. On the road at Boston College, they're traveling over 3,000 miles to play the Eagles here. Yes, Boston College is not a world beater by any means, but they've got a dang good secondary, really good secondary, making me worried about this new pass-catching core for California, making me worried about Devin Brown delivering on the road. Their offense does have some question marks. Maybe won't be that electric, but I still venture to say they're a little bit better and in better shape than California at this point. I think I like Bill O'Brien as a coach a little bit more than Justin Wilcox. They've got home field advantage. I'm going to give them the edge over the Golden Bears. They lose that game to Boston College. They come back home to take on Duke. Certainly a winnable game, but kind of like that Minnesota game. I think Duke owns all the advantages here. They've got a veteran quarterback who was only a freshman last year but played good, Darian Mensah, coming in from Tulane. Veteran running back, solid core of wide receivers with a few questions there. The defense looks to be really solid, especially that defensive line, one of the most underrated units in the conference. And if this California offensive line hasn't panned out the way it needs to, hasn't improved the way it needs to, Duke could have themselves a field day. So I think Duke, again, it might be close, finds a way to get this win on the road. Cal 2-4. Coming out of the bye week, they take on North Carolina, led by Bill Belichick. Maybe another winnable game here, sure. But can this California offense keep up with the North Carolina offense? I really think this UNC offense can be better than people realize. I'm a huge fan of Gio Lopez. That was a huge addition in the transfer portal by Bill Belichick. We know the defense is going to be strong, better than maybe any defense we saw under Mac Brown. That was kind of always their undoing. I think, once again, North Carolina is the better team across the board, all 3 levels, offense, defense, coaching. California, the only thing they've got is home field advantage, and again, these teams can overcome that. They lose to UNC. I don't see them going on the road to beat Virginia Tech. We know how difficult it is to play in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech is coming off a bye coming into this game. They're going to be much healthier than they were last year. The offense is actually going to be severely underrated. A mobile quarterback in Kyron Drones. Some big-time transfers at both running back and wide receiver. And arguably, this is Brent Pry's best team yet. Again, if they can stay healthy. They're not going to win that one, again, in Blacksburg. Virginia, maybe another winnable games, but we talked about the secondary. We said this California secondary is really in deep trouble. They lose all their top guys from last year. They were pretty salty. Virginia now has a dang good quarterback in Chandler Morris, who threw for over 3,700 yards last year with North Texas. That's a huge pickup for the Cavaliers in what is arguably Tony Elliott's best squad in Charlottesville. So even though Cal owns the home field advantage here, I would venture to say that Virginia owns the offensive advantage. They've got, 8 starters coming back on defense? Maybe Cal owns that edge because Wilcox can coach up a defense and these transfers can pan out. But I'm still not sold on the secondary, and I think Morris could have himself a field day. They dropped the game to the Cavaliers. They certainly dropped the game on the road to Louisville, who's been very good at home under Jeff Brom and is loaded across the board. 16 starters back, Miller Moss in at quarterback, really good core of running backs and that salty defense per usual, especially at home. They're drastically better at home than they are on the road, and Louisville gets them there. So, again, you go through that 6-game losing stretch here. They're 2-2. Maybe you think they find a way to win some of those home games. I think the most likely ones would be Duke and Virginia. Maybe you think they can beat Boston College. Honestly, if you're California, if you can find a way to split those 3, if you can find a way to be, 5-5 going into the final 2 weeks of the season, that'd be massive. But I just don't think they can do that. I don't think they can split those 6 games that we have them losing. And it might be insane to have them losing 6 straight, but I'm just not that sold on them. Coming out of the bye week, they take on Stanford, a really underrated rivalry game in college football. And it's underrated because neither of these teams, at least as of late, have been very good and competitive on a national stage. I know Stanford was for a while there, but they've fallen from grace rather quickly. Last year, California trailed 21-7 against the Cardinal, but rallied to win 24-21. That was their 4th straight win in the series. I think they're going to make it 5. I think they find a way to make it 5. I'm not sold on Stanford, a team that just kind of feels like a skeleton crew of a team right now. Are they going to be completely focused with Frank Reich as a interim coach? A lot of off-field distractions, a lot of young talent, not a whole lot of experience there. California, to me, if they're not down on their luck, could be having an interim coach of their own by this point. They fire Wilcox midseason. Could be interesting. Stanford's going to give them everything they got, but I still think Cal is the better team from top to bottom. I think they can snag a win against the Cardinal, snap that 6-game losing streak, even though it doesn't do much for their postseason hopes or anything. But 3-8, they lose to SMU to be 3-9. They lost to the Mustangs 38-6 last year. I think it's a little bit closer, but SMU, a playoff team last year, could be a playoff team again this year. Return a lot of talent, including their quarterback Kevin Jennings. Cal, not going to have much of a chance despite having the game at home. All that being said, we do have California going 3-9 in 2025. And again, that might be a shock. That might be outrageous to some of you, but I'm not sold on Justin Wilcox. Again, with a 42-50 record in 8 seasons, I'm not entirely sure why he's still here. And now I think this is a prime time. California takes a big step back, has a struggling season. They get rid of him. They bring in a fresh coach to bring in some new life to the program, but it's in a new conference, only their 2nd year in the ACC, and maybe can start building themselves up to be more relevant, not just in the ACC, but on the national stage. Again, if you want to find extra wins, we've got them with 3. Maybe they find a way to beat BC, Duke, Virginia. I mean, there's some winnable games in there that can maybe find a way for California to get to a bowl game. To me, 6-6 would be a remarkable accomplishment by Justin Wilcox, considering everything that they've lost, considering how rough this team looks and how much of it relies on the play of these transfers, how quickly they gel, how quickly they build chemistry. I'm just not completely sold on it. Again, I'm not sold on Devin Brown either. I think Cal's competitive in a handful of these games, not good enough to get it job done, just like they were last year. Competitive in so many games, couldn't get the job done. 3-9 for California and a new era beginning for them in 2026. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. A link for it in the description below, as well as our weekly newsletters. Tons of exclusive content there that you're going to be getting all season long over on thegridironexpert.com. Go take advantage of it. Become a member of our GE Nation today. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.